I always wondered how he did it. How David Gilmour was so good at playing his solos. Everyone else seemed to just run through the pentatonic scale, and he was doing something different. When we talk about the guitar players that play with the most feeling, this guy comes up every single time. And how do we do that? It seems like a mystery. I didn't know what was going on. I would guess my way through a solo. But it turns out there is a methodic approach which I'm going to teach you that we can take from David and incorporate into our own playing. For the longest time, I just used to run up and down the pentatonic scale. I would guess my way, hoping that if I played a bunch of notes, I would eventually land on a good one. And again, this is a quantity, not quality approach. I'm like firing a machine gun, spraying and praying, hoping that I'm eventually going to hit my target. Whereas we want to be snipers, where we have one shot, and that's all we need. And we're going to make one shot count, and we're going to land on that perfect note and play with feeling and emotion instead of just shredding, ripping up a scale, right? So by the end of this video, we're going to understand the framework behind which notes we need to be targeting when we're playing over chord changes. And if you don't believe me, if you don't believe that about what I'm talking about, this is how I used to sound as a intermediate, right? I was not very good at the instrument, and I managed to improve my playing and advance and actually develop a lot more technique. I ended up developing my own style somewhat like this. So hopefully this gives you a bit of inspiration to know that you can do the same thing yourself. You do not have to stay stuck where you are with your guitar playing. So I've been in your shoes before, I know how to get out of them. And again, this is how I got good at guitar. My name is Fabian Dolan. I have 10 years of experience on the instrument, over 10,000 hours played, and I've taught countless students in the past. So if you want to be another one of them, if you're currently stagnating with your progress, you're confused as on how you're supposed to improve with the instrument, book a call with me. There is a link in the description. Also, join the Discord. There is a growing community of like-minded guitarists who are all trying to improve like yourself. So if you want to surround yourself with the right people, join that Discord. And again, message me on Instagram for any advice as well. But yeah, I'm going to be able to teach one of you to become advanced. And I'm not going to stop until you're advanced. I'm dedicated to making people improve. So again, if that sounds interesting, you want to advance your guitar playing, check the link in the description. So, what do we want to do as guitarists to sound like David Gilmour? We want to play with intention, right? Like I said earlier, that sniper that has one bullet in the chamber, he's shooting with intention. That's what we're doing. We're playing with intention. We only need one note to sound good. And we can just sit and hold and sing on that one note. That's all we need. We don't need to run through a scale. Okay? To do this, we need to play triads, not scales. So that means we need to learn our triad shapes. I have a video on this already. So if you're unfamiliar with triads, again, check that video out first. But what we want to be doing is we want to be playing through triads instead of running through scale shapes. With triads, we can intentionally target chord tones. That's why we want to play triads, so that we can hit the same notes that are in the chord we're playing over the top of, right? The triad contains these chord tones. That's why we play them. A scale contains some chord tones and also some notes which are not chord tones, which means that eventually, if we play for a scale, we're going to be landing on notes that are kind of they're kind of meh. They're not bad, they don't sound horrible, they don't sound out of key, but they don't sound melodic and harmonious, right? We need to be a sniper, perfectly targeting those correct notes, and we do this with triads. Highlighting these chord tones are going to give us that emotional feeling, just like David Gilmour has. Like if you listen to the start of Shine On You Crazy Diamond, this is what he's doing. He's just bending into chord tones, and he's comfortable with just sitting on one note. He's not ripping up and down a scale, trying to shred or anything like that. This is what brings the emotion, is highlighting those chord tones. And it turns out, not all chord tones are created equally. This is something I learned from a guitar player a lot wiser than myself. And he told me that when I'm playing through the chord changes, you want to target specific notes above more than others, right? We all kind of have an idea of this, right? But what are those specific notes? Again, your ear tells you what those specific notes are. Your ear should be able to tell you what the best melody is above all else. But if you have an untrained ear and you don't trust your ear yet, and you can't even make any good sounding melodies in the first place, this is a great method to follow. So if you've never been able to be happy with your guitar playing, follow this method first. This is going to show you what you should be doing first, and then once we learn how to do this, you can then trust your ear, and your ear will guide you into the correct notes. So we want to be targeting the third above all else. A triad consists of a root note, which is the name of the chord. So for example, a C major chord, a C major triad, the root note would be C, there would be a fifth, and there would be a third as well in there. So in this case it would be C is the root note, G is the fifth, and E is the third. So the notes C, E and G make a C major triad. When we're playing over the chord C, C major, the third is going to be the most melodic and harmonious sounding note that we can play over the top of that chord. So when a band is providing that rhythm section for us and they're playing this chord, all we need is this one perfect note here. We're going to play the third of that chord. We want to target the third above all else. Again, if you don't know which notes to target yet, you don't know how to use your ear to guide you into the correct melody notes, the third is going to be the most important melodic sounding one. And then the fifth is going to be the second most important. And then, again, this is still going to sound good. This is not going to sound bad if you play the root, but the root is very stable. It sounds kind of boring when we play it over the top, right? With the fifth, again, it's stable, but there is a bit more tension. And the third is melodic, but also kind of tense as well, right? So when we play triads in the solo, we target them in this order. If you don't know what you're doing yet, you're brand new to this method, you want to be doing this first, right? Figure out how to play the third, then target the fifth, then the root. So the most important note to land on, if you can only play one note, it's the third of the chord. And we're going to quickly go over how each of these notes actually sound over the top of a chord, right? So we can hear the tonality and the quality. So if I have this C major drone running, we'll play this. Right. So this is the root note. So if I'm playing this over C, you can hear it sounds quite plain. I mean, it sounds good, it sounds right, it sounds correct. It doesn't sound bad like this might sound bad. That sounds quite awful, right? This is quite nice, but it's quite stable. This is the root, C. But as I said, we want to target the most important note. It's the third. So what does it sound like if we play an E? It's a lot more melodic, in my opinion. And then the fifth as well, G. So if we're playing over a C major chord, we want to be targeting these two notes here. And again, it's quite boring if we just play the note. I'm just demonstrating the tonality of how it sounds to get the point across to you. But we can do creative things like slide into that note, or bend into it, right? Or hammer on, or pull off. That's pretty cool, right? Pulling off between the fifth, the G and the E. And going between those root, thirds and fifths. So if you have one note to sit on a chord progression, right? Let's say you're given the challenge of, you're going to play a solo for me. Every time a chord comes along, you're only allowed to play one note for each chord. Make sure you target the third. That's going to be the best sounding note over any chord. So we want to target them in this order. We want to go third, Then the fifth is the second most important, and then the root is the third most important out of all the chord tones. So we have third, we have the fifth, and then we have the root. And again, go between all of these if you have the option to. And you hear what I did there. I kind of built towards the root. There was a kind of sense of direction when I did that. And then from there you can go into the next chord of the progression. So we want to be targeting the third, the fifth, and the root. So to recap, what have you gone over? When playing through chord changes, we need to hunt for that third. This is the most important note. Again, we want to be that sniper, right? This allows us to play with emotion, where we can just bend into one note and just sit there, right? We don't need to be running up and down a scale, playing all these useless notes that we don't even know why we're playing them, right? If you just play the third of each chord in a progression, you're going to sound good. Again, like I said earlier, if you had a chord progression and you were told, okay, you only get to play one note over each chord in the progression, make sure you choose the third. And again, find different ways to approach the third. Bend into it. Perhaps slide. Do a hammer on into it. Pull off into it. Or again, you could even like tap. Like this kind of cool stuff. You can make it a lot more advanced when you have more technique on the instrument and how to kind of make the strings do whatever you want. But yeah, find creative ways to get into that third. And again, the third is going to change for each chord. So obviously it's quite easy if we're playing a song with just one chord. But chords tend to have more, songs tend to have more than one chord in them. So again, when you're going through a chord progression and you're soloing over it, just learn your triads and figure out how to find the third of each triad shape you're playing in. And just play that one note. You only have to play one note for each chord. And if you're going to play one note, just make sure it's the third, because it's the most melodic sounding chord. Again, hunt these chord tones. Find them like a sniper. Do not be a machine gun that's spraying and praying and playing and hoping that you're going to find a right note by just playing a million of them, right? We want to be precise. Again, we need to play with intent. So that means only playing roots, thirds, and fifths, right? This has been how I got good at guitar, helping you go from intermediate to advanced. If you're still stuck, even after watching this lesson, book a call with me. I want to make sure that you actually get better at guitar. Again, there is a link in the description to chat with me, okay? And respect for making it to the end. You're in the top 1% of guitarists. If you made it this far, it means you actually got a decent attention span. And that means that you're probably going to be able to learn a lot of information over a long time. And again, subscribe for more high quality guides. Check out the Discord of like-minded guitarists like yourself. And again, follow me on Instagram. Sweet. Thank you very much for all the kind comments from all you guys here. And the reviews from students as well. I appreciate that. And take care.